Yeah, I'm Rikard.
And I'm Andreas.
And as you said, we're from Planet, and we're a music meet tech company. And today we're going to talk about WebVR and why we think it's cool. And we're going to show you our recent WebVR experiment called Sonic Umbrella, and talk a bit about what we learned from doing that. But first, a little quick introduction to who we are.
Yes. Planet started about 10 years ago as a traditional music production company, mainly making music for film. After a few years, we progressed into doing interactive audio, and then mainly for the web. And we did a lot, or we still do, a lot of interactive web experiences. And we built our own sound framework based on Web Audio API that's called Klang. And as you see here, today our heart is somewhere between music and tech. And we do a lot of different type of projects, installations, VR, web, games, etc. But we're still a music company, and all employees at Planet has a background as musician, but with a big technical interest, and we like to try new things. And to give you an idea of stuff we've been involved in, we're gonna really quickly show 3 projects.
Throwing paper airplanes with your phone.
Creating a giant music sequencer from a building.
And making a paint-throwing robot dance to our music.
Yeah, that's really quick introduction to Planet.
But today we're here to talk about WebVR. And WebVR is, for those who don't know, it's a new browser API that makes it possible to develop and experience VR in your browser. Basically, you click a link and you get thrown into VR. That's the goal. And it's meant to make VR more accessible, no matter what device you're using. And what do you need to experience WebVR, Andreas?
You should know, Rikard. First of all, you need a headset, and there's a wide range of headsets. Some which you connect your PC to, like the HTC Vive and Oculus Rift, and the PlayStation VR that you connect to your PlayStation. And the one on the bottoms here, you just put your phone in, like Samsung Gear, Google Daydream, and Google Cardboard. And these, of course, differ a bit in price, from roughly 9,000 kronor for the HTC Vive to maybe 30 kronor for a cardboard. And the quality of the experience varies accordingly.
Yeah.
And Rikard, I know you have tried a lot of these headsets. Which one is your favorite?
Funny you should ask. My definitely favorite is the HTC Vive, because it provides something called room scale, which means you can move around in the virtual space. Like physically, it tracks your how you walk and how you move your arms. But I also like the Gear and the Daydream, mostly for its portability. And you're also not stuck with cables going back to your computer. And you can bring it on a flight if you want to.
Yes, the other thing you need is a browser that supports WebVR. And as you can see here, all major browsers are working on supporting it. Maybe except Safari, we don't know that. But Google, Firefox, and Microsoft are implementing it in their browsers. And Samsung and Oculus are building their own VR browsers called Samsung Internet and Carmel.
Building a new internet.
Yes. And yeah, the latest Chrome for Android supports WebVR for Daydream and Cardboard. And to use Vive and Rift, you need to run Chromium or Firefox Nightly. And yeah, other devices can be supported by using something called WebVR Polyfill, which we'll talk more about later.
Since we love the web and also new technology, we were really eager to try WebVR out. So we started to make these small experiments, gave it 1 to 3 days just to see what we can do. And just, to learn from and see the potential. And the first one we did, something called Constellations, which was, we took data from all these stars. The data consisted of the name, how far away from Earth it was, and the position of it. And we mapped it out in 3D. Then we allowed the user to make their own constellations by gazing, looking at the stars and connecting them. And this also was turned into a music sequence, like you can hear here.
Yes, another lab we did, we called Bouncy Bits. And here we wanted to explore polyrhythms in a fun and easy way. So you're surrounded by balls, and you can lift them up by gazing at them and drop them. And the height dictates the rhythm, and you can also switch sound by looking at the floor. It's like a shortcut to Steve Reich's music. Yes.
Okay, so we were one of the 12 lucky studios to be asked to do an experiment for the Google WebVR experiment.com. And that's a site that's made by Google to promote WebVR much in the same manner as Chrome experiment did with HTML5, but for VR then. And so all projects are open sourced, and users can submit their own for now, I think. And Google is really pushing WebVR and making it accessible in Chrome and everything. And they made a really great film explaining why this site should exist, and I think they can sell it better than us. So we're gonna.
VR should be accessible to everyone, because it has the potential to let everyone explore, play, and create in amazing new ways. But right now, VR is pretty complicated. To make awesome VR stuff, developers might have to learn a new language, and then spend a bunch more time to make that stuff work on multiple headsets. And then when we want to play with their awesome VR stuff, we've got to have the right headset. VR should be easier, so developers can make something quickly and share it with everyone, no matter what device they're on. Kind of like how easy it is to share stuff on the web, but with VR. Well, that's the idea behind WebVR. It's VR on the web, for everyone. Here's how it works. Say you're in a browser like Chrome, and you come across a WebVR experience. You just tap the link, put on a headset, and boom, you're in VR. Developers can build WebVR things the same way they build web things, with JavaScript. And since it all works in a browser, it's easy to make it work for all kinds of VR devices, whether it's someone using their phone, their computer, or their entire room. Developers are already building and sharing awesome stuff with WebVR. We've started showcasing their work on a site called WebVR Experiments. It gives you a glimpse into the kind of stuff that's possible. You can play simple games, see the world in a new way, explore interactive stories, play with a friend, or lots of friends. Each experiment comes with open source code to help others make new experiments, and developers can submit what they make. All of this is an effort to make VR more accessible, so anyone can build and everyone can play with awesome VR stuff. So come and start playing at webvrexperiments.com.
Yes, so our experiment is called Sonic Umbrella, and it's an experiment, an audio experiment where you get to experience how it can sound when a bunch of weird objects is raining on you. And you have your umbrella that you can open and close, and that affects the sound. And yeah, the idea is to recreate the magic of standing under an umbrella and hear the rain hitting the canvas. But since it's VR, we had to exaggerate a bit, so we couldn't just have normal raindrops. We had to drop jazz drums, dog toys, fruits, ping pong balls, and stuff that sounds funny when dropped.
I mean, we also wanted to take something of an audio-first approach to this, since we have our roots in audio and music. And we wanted to explore and showcase spatial audio in VR and what it can do for that. So audio first, that meant scaling back any graphic or visual effects to leave more room for audio. And our idea also had to it's going to live on the web, so it has to work on an old phone as well as a new gaming PC. So we wanted to, when it came to interaction and stuff, we wanted to keep that as very simple. So we didn't have to worry too much about all the different input methods.
Yes, and we're going to show you a short film so you can see more what it is, but you should really check this out with a headset and headphones for the full experience. But here's it.
Good day. Welcome to Sonic Umbrella. You see this umbrella? We need to get it tested and ready for VR. Press spacebar to open it. A low pressure pushing from the east, bringing fleeting fruit showers of apples, bananas and grapes. With the ridge of high pressure, we have got a band of cloud out to the west, bringing blustery showers of rubber ducks later in the afternoon. Temperatures beginning to drop away already under those cloudy skies, bringing sleet with a chance of jazz drums. Okay, that's it. Another successfully executed and logged simulation completed. We thank you for your participation. Bye-bye now.
Yeah, that's yeah. But as I said, you should really check it out with headphones.
Yeah.
It makes more sense. This picture here is just to show you how serious we are with audio. This is our music producer KJ, who's dropping eggs on an umbrella and recording the sound. And we spent some time figuring out which things would sound fun falling on the ground. We tried, egg sounds really funny because it sounds different when it hits the umbrella and the ground. We tried meat, it didn't work well. Soda cans worked better. In total we have like 7 sets of stuff falling. So Rikard, how do you build a WebVR site?
Yeah, well, to start with, you don't want to work directly in WebGL. So you want to choose a WebGL or a 3D framework. And this is pretty much why. This is a regular cube or a very simple cube in WebGL code. And this is using a framework, in this case 3. So there's a lot of code that hides for you. So there are quite a lot of frameworks out there to choose between. To give an example of a few, we have 3. A-Frame, React VR, Babylon.js, yeah, and a whole lot more. And we chose to work with 3 because we had previous experience with it, and they were also very quick to put out examples in WebVR, which we could learn from and try out. And one of those examples, yes?
Yeah, this is one of the first examples we saw in WebVR. It's made by Mr. Doob, and it's like a light version of Tilt Brush, but directly in the browser. And you can sculpt with your Vive controllers. What do you think it looks like? Anyone? Yeah, exactly what we thought as well. So we cloned this repo and added some spatial sound to it. And yeah, it was our first experience with having spatial sound in WebVR.
Pretty good one.
Yeah, and now
code, yes, finally. So back to 3. I don't know how many are familiar with 3 here. Okay, so if you already know how to make a basic 3D scene, this is the bare minimum to create this. If you already know that, the step to making this into an awesome VR cube is not that complicated. We have it down to 4 steps here. The first step is to add something called the VR control, which is a 3 plugin. And that basically takes the rotation from the viewer's head or device, and translates the rotation of the camera to follow that. So that's the first thing you need. You need to be able to track the head. The other step is, this other step is something called a VR effect, which you basically replace 3's normal renderer with a stereoscopic one. And so that's 3 lines of codes. We had to replace what was previous the renderer. And I always forget this too. Request animation frame needs to be a special one. WebVR requires a much more high performance rendering path. So you can't use the regular request animation frame on window. You have to use a special one. And Effect provides you with I think it even polyfills. So depending on what browser you use, if you have the more effective one available, it's going to choose that. Otherwise, use the normal one. So that's something you have to change too. And fourth and final one is when prompting the user to enter VR, you need to do that with you need to enter VR with a user event. You need to have it go in there with a click or a touch event. And 3 has a great little utility for doing that in a couple of lines. So that's it. That's how you turn a normal 3 scene into a VR one. And it's super easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you make it sound so easy. We had some challenges developing Sonic Umbrella. We're going to bring up 2 of them. First one is the user interaction. WebVR has to support all different kinds of devices with different kinds of input. Like the cardboard has touch input, and the Daydream and Vive and Oculus have different type of controllers. And there are cardboards without interaction buttons, and then we can use gaze interaction, which is that you're interacting with something by looking at it. And you can't really know which kind of input a user has. You can, for example, have a cardboard without an interaction button, or a Rift without a controller connected. So that led to a lot of cases to handle in our code, even though we only have one interaction that is opening and closing an umbrella. And also because we had that voiceover that speaks out every instruction, we had to make a lot of different recordings for that and logic to handle. And looking back, it would have maybe saved us a lot of trouble simplifying the instructions bit.
Yeah. Another thing to consider is obviously performance. And going back to what I said earlier, that if it's on the web, it has to work on like as many devices as possible. Have to give some sort of minimum experience. And this is quite challenging when it comes to spatial audio, 3D graphics, and head tracking, and what more?
Yeah, to have it running.
And you want it to run it smoothly. You want to aim for at least 60 frames per second. Anything less than that is going to really affect the experience of viewing this in VR, because you have a screen this close. It's going to dropping frames and stuff is going to be very noticeable. You would really preferably aim for above 90 frames per second to be really good, but that's probably not feasible on an iPhone 5.
Yeah. Another annoying thing with developing an audio-focused WebVR experience is that the first thing you notice that the performance is dropping is when the audio starts to crackle. I mean, you don't really notice if a frame drops, but as soon as the audio starts to crackle, you notice it. And we couldn't accept this since it was going to showcase audio. So we had really had to optimize it to make the audio sound good.
And an obvious thing with this too is if you're targeting that many devices, you also want to test on that many devices. And testing things in VR is quite time consuming too, if you have to put on your VR headset every time you want to test the new performance and see what works in on different devices. Yeah.
Yeah, and the solutions for this, for the user interaction, we had to make some assumptions. To start with, whoops.
We only had one.
What?
We only had one to start with.
Yeah, now to start with, we assume that if you're on Vive or Daydream, you have a gamepad in your hand. For Daydream, you have to press your controller to enter VR. So in that case, we knew that you had a controller. And for the rest, we assumed you didn't have anything except gaze control until you started using it. And as I said, we only had one interaction, toggle the umbrella, and that allowed us to simplify it. So all buttons did the same thing, which was opening and closing the umbrella. And we later found a library called ray.js that takes care of detecting which input is available and also interacting with objects with a kind of laser pointer. And that might have saved us some work if we had used that instead. What about the performance?
Well, when it came to performance, as much as we could, we tried to do a graceful degradation. We had to do some simplifications for our own developing sake. So we divided the performance targets into three different groups, pretty much, which means each group had a number of objects that could fall, how many audio sources that could be played at once, and how they were played out. And then we chose one of those depending on the device. And physics we kept very, very simple. Basically, if an object was below the ground, it was colliding with the ground. And when it came to the umbrella, we really only cared about having physics on it when the umbrella was up, because otherwise the objects would fall through, and we didn't want that. And that was basically a sphere collider, a very simple one, and we could cheat quite a lot because you had an umbrella, so you didn't really see the collision. You heard it, and you felt it, so we could cheat quite a lot there. We could have done more. We discussed early on if we should use a level of detail thing where we render more details the closer things are, very common in game engines. But we opted for sort of a low poly look instead, which also saved us a lot of poly count. So we didn't really feel like that was necessary. We could have had a frame counting system where we could dynamically adapt the performance settings depending on the frame rate. So if it ever dropped below 60, we could start dropping stuff and even remove things if we needed to. That would be a thing I would consider if I redid it now.
Yes, and as we said, WebVR Polyfill, it's like a polyfill that gives an alternative experience for unsupported browsers and devices. And it fallbacks to a first-person view or 360 experience where you can control with your mouse and keyboard. On desktop and on mobile, it uses device orientation, so you can like pan around with your mobile and experience it that way. And that is really useful when developing because you don't have to constantly put on your headset and check. You can just debug it in your normal browser.
A bit of a warning though. It's easy to get too lazy with that. So it goes 3 days before you try it in VR, and then you realize, oh,
it doesn't work.
Something doesn't work. So it's good to always check.
Yes.
Yeah, some statistics for sonicumbrella.com. Since it launched in mid of April, roughly a month ago, we have had 13,000 unique visitors. Interesting enough, 10% of these actually enter the site with any kind of VR device. So not a whole lot. And 0.5 of these entered with a high-end Oculus device on a PC, or a Oculus or a Vive device. And also one BlackBerry user. No idea how that went. But it is interesting to notice that we made something as awesome as possible for VR. And 90% of our visitors doesn't experience that. They experience the 360 video or 360 experience we showed in the video. And I don't know, we discussed this right up until launch if we should even provide a 360 fallback, or on your phone, if you don't have a cardboard, you can still view it in a sort of a magic window. And part of us, I mean, we wanted you to really experience this fully, and trust me, it's a lot more, or a lot better in VR, and it's worth putting on your headset, but it's kind of hard to make people do that at all sometimes.
Yeah, it could be that people don't have headsets, or otherwise people are just lazy and don't want to put on them.
Yeah,
we know because it happens that we also just.
It happens. If you give them an easy option,
yeah,
the chances are they're going to take the easy option and miss out on the thing you really think is great.
Yes. So what's next? Since the headline for this event is Post-JavaScript, we should round up this talk with looking at what's next. And as we said before, we had a problem with how to interact with our umbrella on different devices. So that's something we hope will be standardized in the future, how to interact with objects in VR and how to surf the web in VR.
Yeah, I think surfing the web in VR is an important point. I think the transition between different experiences right now, as I said, you have to have a user push a button to enter VR. So you can't really transition from one web page experience to another in VR. You always have to constantly take it off. I think once we get rid of that, once we can surf the web, even see regular web pages in VR, and just stay in VR, that's going to do a lot for a seamless experience. And I mean, for now, worth saying is it's a great way to augment a web experience, especially if it's targeted to phones, where you give the user an option to just jump in VR. If it's a video or an image, where you just can click to add something to the experience. But there's also a whole lot to say about the storytelling in VR. There's a lot to explore there when it comes to what kind of stories to tell in WebVR. And I think a lot of what you see today is very cool tech demos, probably targeted mostly to developers. It is interesting to see what will happen in the future with like real engaging storytelling and see what format works that can engage users and make them come back and increase the number from 10% to, I don't know, a little more.
20.
20.
Yeah. And Josh Carpenter, who is one of the guys working with WebVR at Google, he predicts that for WebVR to scale and spread, it needs to be even simpler to create. And therefore, he suggests that the developers should be able to create VR experiences just by using HTML and CSS. And he lists some new building blocks like 360 backgrounds, 3D positioning of DOM elements, native 360 video elements, and element for adding 3D models right in HTML. So maybe in the future we can create, like we already can with A-Frame, but create VR experiences just by using HTML.
CSS.
And CSS, yeah. To sum up, WebVR is cool. It's easy to get started with, especially if you're familiar with 3. It's accessible, it's open for anyone, cross-platform, and you don't have to download anything, just click. It's easy to share, since it's just a link, you can share it on any social media. easy to update. You don't need to wait for an app store to push your changes. Yeah. That's all for us. Here's some links if you want to check out Sonic Umbrella, and there's some cardboards there. You can check it out later. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yes.
Tomek.
Awesome. How long did it take you, like, from start to finish?
You don't want to know.
I mean, worth mentioning with this is we jumped on right when it was so new. So a lot of our griefs were in like browsers didn't work as they were supposed to. Testing also just figuring out where the fault was. Like if something didn't work, it was hard to know if it was your fault, if it was the browser, if it was 3.
Yeah.
So I actually had a method for that, which was to go into webvr.info, which that's the official WebVR website, and I looked at their examples, and if it worked there, I moved on to testing it in the 3 examples, and if it worked there, I knew we screwed up. Otherwise, I could just blame the browser.
Yeah, it's probably one of the projects we have worked the longest time with, and when we did this presentation a while back ago, we had as an argument for WebVR that it's so fast to to develop with. But yeah, we removed that now from our list of features. But yeah,
but you saw how easy
it could be fast, but as it is now, it's so much that you need to tweak for different devices. So.
But again, it's very early, and that's just kind of what you have to expect when you jump on something this early. It's going to be everything is going to be a lot easier in just a couple of months, I'm sure.
Next Chrome release.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Yes.
Yes. No need for that. I think I'm loud enough.
I'm wondering, I mean, really real simple question. How did you make the umbrella? I mean, is that something that you imported from someone? I mean, I don't know, some 3D person made it for you, and then you import it, and with 3, you made the movement and everything. I'm just...
Yeah. It was made in Blender. Lucky for us, our boss really enjoys doing 3D stuff, so he did it for us. And it's basically the model. It's 2 or 3 different states, and we morph between them. So it's a morph animation.
Thank you.
So since someone asked about the umbrella, were the eggs in actual terminal velocity when they reached? Because they should be coming from pretty high up.
Well, artistic license? No, I guess not.
Final question? No? Yes.
Do you know the performance hit of running stuff in WebVR compared to some native app like for Vive?
Like if you would take the scene I had and compare it. Honestly, no, I don't have any numbers on that. I mean, you gain a lot from the VR API, and they really try to put everything on a lower level. So I mean, there are quite a lot of performance gain in using it, but no, I can't tell you if it's a big difference.
Okay, let's give Andreas and Rikard another round of applause.